Hello and welcome to the Monday show here on the Everything is Black and White podcast. I'm Andrew Musgrove, joined by Aaron Stokes. And as it's Christmas, we've got you a very special guest in the shape of BBC Radio Newcastle's Matthew Raisbeck. We'll get Matthew into the studio in a wee while. On today's show, we'll look back on a much-needed win for Newcastle United over Fulham and the standout performances of some unexpected names. We'll assess the ongoing injury crisis as well as Tuesday's clash with Chelsea in the League Cup. This is the Everything is Black and White podcast. Please like, follow and subscribe. Aaron, how are we doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. What about yourself?
I'm doing good. It's a celebration this week. Do you know why?
Is it?
Because this week marks, and this is the wild life I lead, ladies and gentlemen. This week marks a whole year since I took the lift in this office. And I've just gone down and counted how many stairs that is. 80 steps up to the office, and a whole year without using the lift.
Only you would keep a note of that mentally and mark an anniversary.
I'm impressed by that.
Are you going to go home and celebrate with a non-alcoholic beer tonight?
I mean, Aaron hates it when we go out for lunch together because if he's going to join me, he has to come down the stairs. But you were on your little journey of your own on Sunday.
Yeah, a little 9 mile walk yesterday. Just clearly trying to keep up with you. You know what I mean?
How was the knee?
Yeah, fine.
I was worried.
Going good.
I was worried at today's press conference you were going to ask Eddie how to make room in the physio's room to recover.
No, look, Emil Krafth came back with an absolute stormer on Saturday from his ACL, and that'll be me in a couple of months' time when I finally make my return.
Return to Monday Night Football. That's what you're aiming for, isn't
exactly.
it? And if you can have a return like Emil Krafth, it'll be quite a special one. A fantastic win over Fulham, a much-needed win. And before I hold my hands up and admit I was wrong about the Fulham game, let's get Matthew into the studio. Matthew, are we doing you well?
When you said it's Christmas and you've got a special guest, I thought you meant Santa was coming on. Bit of an anticlimax having me, but thanks for inviting me and good to see both of you again.
Well, you've gone for like a festive colour there. Not quite the red of Santa Claus, but it's a matching jumper, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not the most festive. It's orange. It caught Eddie Howe's eye earlier at the press conference. He remarked on how brightly coloured it is, which I suppose is approaching a compliment from him. At least he noticed it.
Which I'm sure was the aim when you put it on this morning. Now, I have to say I was feeling very down before the Fulham game. I was predicting a heavy loss to Newcastle. And then if they did lose, I was thinking they're going to go out of the cup to Chelsea. But I was wrong, and I'll happily admit that I was wrong. I still think Fulham put up an excellent fight, even with 10 men. But Newcastle still had to win. And it's never easy, is it, Aaron, when you go up against 10 men. And Fulham didn't make it easy for Newcastle at all.
They didn't at all. And even when it was 11v10 in that first half, there was moments where Fulham had real flashes. You know, I mean, Alex Iwobi on another day really should have scored that chance when Joelinton's pass goes astray. And Newcastle really had to ground it out. I mean, the first half, they were a little bit slow, they were a little bit sluggish. You could tell that they were trying to break Fulham down. And the game was really crying out for someone to just pick it up on its back and drive Newcastle forward. And thankfully, in Bruno, they had a player like that. But I think at half-time, some of us were thinking, is it going to be one of those days where they just can't put the ball in the net?
I think, Reza, you could sense it around the stadium as well. It was a wee bit flat to begin with. Obviously, the red card kind of ramped things up. But what you had was Newcastle just trying to break down a very organised and decent Fulham side, which at times I didn't think looked like they had a man sent off.
No, Fulham did well with the 10 men, and it would have been interesting to see how the match would have gone if it remained 11v11 for longer. But they had 3/4 of the 90 minutes, Newcastle, with a man advantage. So it felt like winning was only a matter of time. I would say that obviously that skewed things a little bit, didn't it, with Raul Jimenez getting sent off. But also, if both teams were at full strength, you would back Newcastle to beat Fulham, as good as they've been recently, probably every time at St James's Park. So it was a match that they were targeting in terms of a win, and it was a much needed victory as well. And even though it took a while for the goals to come, I think once you saw the way they started the second half with the intent that they were playing with, I know Fulham had maybe a little bit of ball the first 5 minutes of the second half, but really it was mostly all Newcastle. You felt that the goals would come, and yeah, they came a bit later, but three very different goals, and for different reasons, but a satisfying win, and the relief on Eddie Howe's face when the ball hit the net after Lewis Miley scored was real, because it's not a game that they could have afforded to slip up in, because they would have lost more ground in the race for Europe, and also it would have extended the winless run, or possibly the losing run. So it was a vital victory for them. But yeah, maybe they just needed something to go their way, and perhaps the red card decision, the VAR review, and then the upgrade to a red just was the helping hand that they needed in that first half.
Indeed. And Aaron, no question, red card?
Yeah, look, I'm going to be honest. I've watched it back 4 or 5 times since Saturday, and I still cannot work out what on earth Raul Jimenez was trying to do. I mean, why on earth was he flying in with a kung fu style kick in the first place?
He's riled up, isn't he? Because he feels like Lascelles should have probably seen red moments.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we were talking about this after the match. If there's any striker in the Premier League that is going to probably need a couple of minutes to calm down after something like that, it's Raul Jimenez. He does sort of play like a bit of a headless chicken sometimes. And I think that was what we saw. We saw he was angry, and he jumped into, like I say, karate chop, long staff. He tries to pull out of it. And I think by him trying to pull out of it, it actually earns him the yellow card in the first place, because the ref says, okay, look, he's came in with force. But I think as soon as you saw the first replay of it, you thought, there's no way he's going to escape that. And I think it was the correct decision. And funnily enough, Marco Silva only took 3 questions after the game from a London-based journalist, and he spent the entire 4 minutes 40 of his press conference moaning about the referee. But one thing that he didn't actually moan about was the decision to give the red card. And I think that says quite a lot.
It was good to see where the VAR actually doing what it's meant to do. Doesn't always happen. But as Aaron mentioned there, Marco Silva, he was a tad angry after the game. And what did you make of his comments? Because he's essentially accused the referee of crumbling to the influence of Newcastle United's fans.
Well, I was in the radio interview room, which is along the tunnel at St James's Park, not far from where you were in the main press conference. And Marco Silva performed in exactly the same way. He was asked a general question about the match, and he spent a good few minutes ranting about the referee and VAR. He was really irate, actually. I haven't seen a manager that well. We saw Mikel Arteta, I suppose, but apart from that one, a manager is annoyed in a post-match interview for a long time. I think his frustration was that the challenge or the contact between Lascelles and Jimenez was not looked at, and there was nothing given against Lascelles. And then within a few minutes, he loses his centre forward, who he said was still a bit wound up because of that. But listening back to what Marco Silva said, there were also, I think, more criticisms aimed at the VAR process and how that influenced a referee who's relatively inexperienced in the Premier League. It was only Sam Barrett's 8th Premier League fixture, and he felt that yellow card was fine, but pressure from VAR kind of forced him to upgrade it. And we say it all the time, don't we, that whenever a referee goes to the screen, there's a sense of inevitability about what's coming, and that the decision, whatever was made on the pitch, will be changed, will be reversed, or when it's an offence with a card, it'll be upgraded. And that was the case. So once he went to the screen, you always felt that it would happen. It was pretty wild and out of control action, though, from Jimenez. As you just said, Aaron, not really sure what he's doing. If he'd caught Longstaff on the shoulder rather than around the head, perhaps there wouldn't have been an upgrade to a red card, because that's potentially not as dangerous. But it was bizarre action, and I don't really think they can complain too much, Fulham, but obviously they would. I think any team would when it goes against them.
On a wider note with VAR, I'm just wondering, as a commentator, how you deal with the long pauses in the game when they are looking at an incident. Now, Saturday wasn't too much of a delay at all, but we have seen decisions taken minutes upon minutes. So what are you doing in that instance? Because you are live on the radio, you're live on the club website at that moment. I suppose, is it just describing what you can see and just trying your best to fill in the gap? Yeah,
let me tell you how it works. Because local radio across the country, not just BBC Newcastle, we don't get access to the VAR feed like Sky Sports would, or any other BT Sports, Amazon Prime, any other live TV Premier League broadcaster, even Match of the Day. So we know what we see on the screen, and we are obviously ahead of the supporters in the stands who don't get information until it's announced, or it appears on the giant screen at St James's, which part of the ground can't see as well if you're in the east stand or some of the leasers or the Gallagher end. So we are probably slightly behind the television broadcasters in what we know and when. So we have to just talk through it. And on the radio, obviously, you can't have silence. You can't have dead air. There's still atmosphere from the crowd. But we just have to really recap what's happened and say what we're seeing on the replays. So John Anderson, former Newcastle player who's with me for the games, we will look at the replays. We will say what we're seeing, talk about the angles that we get and how it might look different from different positions, depending on where the camera is and the speeds that are shown. And then Ando will try and form his opinions from that, which may or may not be different to what he called in real time, which I think on Saturday he felt that yellow card was probably fair enough. And then seeing it again, understanding why VAR felt that there was a review. And then when the referee goes to the monitor, obviously we say that he's doing that, but also there can be a delay then, can't there? Because he's being shown everything by VAR. He's in communication with them through his headset. So we have to talk through that. And just, on Saturday, we're just talking about where the players were because they were looking over his shoulder, watching it again. We just wait for it all to play out. And then as soon as we get the confirmation, we announce it. You hear the crowd, which obviously helps, confirm the point that a decision's been made. But more information would be really useful for us in commentary as it would be for supporters in the stadium, because you need as much information as you can to understand what's going on, even if you don't necessarily agree with it.
I think our listeners know my view on VAR and how much it needs to be improved before I get on side with it. I've got some comments here, Reza, which makes me think you've slipped some people 20 quid on your way in. Sammy says the voice of a Newcastle United legend, so I'm assuming they can only be talking about you. And Gary says, I always enjoy watching and listening to match highlights on Newcastle TV and YouTube with Matthew's commentary. Brilliant. So, there are people out there that like you, Matthew.
Well, thank you for listening, whether it's through the radio or through NUFC TV or the club's social media. It's always nice to hear that people appreciate the service. And John Anderson always gets to hear any positive comments. I always pass them on to Ando. So thank you. And I pass on the negative ones as well. We all get that, don't we?
Don't worry, Aaron's saving them till later in the show.
We can all improve. Yeah.
So when Newcastle had their chances, Aaron, you've got Gordon hitting the bar and Leno producing a fantastic save early in the second half. But you always felt that goal would come, and it did come thanks to Lewis Miley. And it just seems for, I don't know how long now, the last month, 6 weeks, we've just been raving about this lad and saying, what more can we say about him? But again, on Saturday, he just had an air of maturity about him for a 17-year-old, which most won't have, to be rested. Reacts really well to that, coming off the bench, stepping into Joe Linton's shoes. That's not an easy task. And then the way he takes his chance as well, at the Gallagher, he's calm, he's composed. And I think I sat here, I think it was the Manchester United game, and we both said we just want him to have that confidence to strike a ball because he was getting into the right positions. We both called it the Longstaff run, just to the right of the box, where you got the far left corner bearing down. And this time he took his chance. He was confident. He didn't put his foot through it. He just picked his spot and rolled it into the back of the net. And what a moment for the lad.
Absolutely. I think one thing that struck me before the game, I don't know if people listening or watching will agree with me, but I was actually really surprised to see him not starting because we've just gotten so used to him, as you say, the last month, 6 weeks, being a part of this team. And we've been asking the question in recent weeks, how long until we're actually thinking of him as, a real contender to replace someone like Willock or Longstaff. And I think he could feel really aggrieved to have missed out on Saturday, given his recent form. Eddie Howe was asked about it afterwards and said he just wanted to give him a rest, which is understandable. But as you say, if we were sat here 2 months ago and you're talking about Joe Linton going off in the middle of the first half and Miley coming into the team, you'd be thinking, okay, it's a bit of a downgrade. And now, actually, Miley's just in this rhythm where he's slotting into the team, he's making them better. And as you've just touched on there, we've seen a lot of times in the last couple of weeks, he's been getting into that right-hand channel, as Longstaff loves to do. And he gets his goal at the Gallagher. And by the way, the best moment of Saturday by far was seeing him wheeling away. And Eddie Howe always talks about how composed and calm he is and doesn't let all this fanfare and hype get to him. And you feel like on Saturday you just saw a little glimpse of him finally breaking that character, and he sort of looked a bit embarrassed celebrating in front of the Gallagher, and Gordon's pushing him back into the corner to make sure he goes and enjoys another celebration. I think that was the first time we actually saw Lewis Miley think, okay, you know what, this is real now. This is actually a dream come true. Whereas before it just looked like nothing at all phased him. But I mean, it was absolutely fantastic. I thought he had another great game.
You certainly did it. I think in that moment as well, Razor, when you've got Bruno running straight towards him, and as Aaron said, Gordon pushing him back in towards the crowd. Then afterwards, Dan Burn going up for interview alongside him. It's a sign of how the leaders are playing a role in Lewis Miley's development. There was an instant when he first comes on, about 5 minutes after he comes on, and Fulham have a counter, and he's let his man run. Obviously, he's just getting into the game. He's just come on. And Sean Longstaff turns around to him and berates him. He says, you've got to keep it to play. And we're seeing this. We're seeing the leaders not letting Lewis Miley get ahead of himself. They're keeping him grounded and always looking for ways to improve him. Yeah,
they're looking after him. They're protecting him, but they are treating him as an equal, like any other player. So I think that's all part of it. Everything that you've outlined then and you've just talked about. He is there on merit, and he is. He's a first-team player now, even at the tender age of 17, which is a remarkable thing for somebody that young. But he deserves it. He's so good, and he's only going to get better. They've thought for a while at Newcastle that Lewis Miley will have a big future, and he's a player not just for the years to come, but also a player for now. And thank goodness he's there because of the injury crisis and all the midfielders that they've had unavailable at various times, because they've needed him. But at the team's time of need, he stepped in and stepped up straight away. And it's fantastic, because the League Cup tie against Manchester City, when he made his first competitive start in September, he didn't perhaps hit the heights that he did in pre-season. Different environment, obviously, but that was a tough night for him. He probably grew from that experience, and then coming in for those games against Chelsea with that brilliant setup for Isak, going and playing so well with such composure in Paris, against Manchester United again, and on, and even after Bournemouth when it was tough for the team, but he did well in the central role at times in the midfield. He's probably gotten better with every match, and there's no fears now, as Aaron said, about him playing, and there have been fans who were disappointed as well that he didn't start. But Eddie Howe, again, talked about not exposing him to too much football at the age of 17. They don't want to burn him out. So he may be in and out over the next few weeks and months, but probably more in than out at the moment because of all the injuries. And Joe Linton being the latest midfielder to have a problem, and Joe Willock not back yet. Elliot Anderson, Eddie Howe said his recovery is happening, but it's been slow from his stress fracture in his back. So they are light in the middle. Obviously, Tonali can't play for another 8 or 9 months. So we are going to see more of Lewis Miley, which is just a fantastic thing for Newcastle, and brilliant also for the academy and the young Geordies there, who can see that if you're good enough, that the pathway exists.
Well, there's a Miley brother as well, which the academy are supposedly very excited about as well. So long may the success there continue. Aaron, is it slightly different with Lewis Miley in terms of his first team position than it is, say, with Jamal Lascelles versus Sven Botman? We were looking at when Botman returns, there's a lot of debate that Botman will just slide straight back into that starting 11. I know he didn't over the weekend, but I'm talking about when he gets back to match fitness. But with Miley, there's no guarantee that when players start to return, as we've seen, the likes of Sean Longstaff and co, that Lewis Miley does drop out of the side from now on, and he has to just make an impact from the bench.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, look, if results go Newcastle's way this week and they beat Chelsea and they get a result against Sunderland next month, the games are going to continue to come thick and fast. And as Razor's just pointed out there, Elliot Anderson doesn't look like he's too close to return, and Joe Willock is probably going to be out for another month. We know that Sean Longstaff has his troubles with injuries over time. Bruno and Joe Linton, you can never really guarantee on them for a full season either. So we're sat here talking about, okay, will he drop out? There might actually not come a time where he's even asked to, because of this ongoing crisis. But I think Razor makes a really good point up against Manchester City. He was thrown in from the outset, very, very talented, lots of hype around him. And the game just sort of really passed him by. Whereas now, we've seen him in the last couple of weeks alone, PSG, AC Milan, Chelsea, these big games, he doesn't look fazed by them anymore. So I think the last 6 weeks, and maybe, as Razor said, that first baptism of fire where he got thrown in against City and he got hauled off at half-time through no fault of his own, I think that has made him, a much, much better player.
It's really interesting, isn't it, Razor? Because with Elliot Anderson, you looked at him and you always thought he needed to fill out, he needed to go to the gym, he needed to add a bit of muscle about him, and he went away and did that. And suddenly you went, okay, there's a play here. But with Lewis Miley, he's thin as a stick. He will end up filling out a little bit as he gets older. But I think there's a different level there already. And I don't want to sound harsh on Anderson because he's going to have a great career, and I'm very excited for when he comes back. But I do already look at the two and think already, Miley looks better than Anderson, and he's still 2-3 years younger than him.
Yeah, well, different types of midfielders. Also, Elliot Anderson. When I saw him play for the academy teams, he was playing often in the forward line, whether it's wide or as a number 10. But Eddie Howe's liked him as a left-sided central midfielder, which is where he played quite a bit of his football this season. And that's actually, I think that's a massive blow, losing Elliot Anderson, because he was looking good. And this was a chance for him, really. He was starting games regularly in the Premier League to establish himself. And there's a heck of a lot more to come from him as well.
Well, we've lost Razor there. That is the curse of doing it live. We'll see if we can get Razor back in a moment. 2 seconds. Is he back? You're back?
Yeah.
You are back.
Hello. Yeah, I could still see you, but you lost me. I was just saying how much more there's to come from Elliot Anderson. And with his versatility, that's a big plus. And Eddie Howe likes that. Look at how many Newcastle players get used in more than one position. It's not an accident. But comparing him to Lewis Miley, I think it's great that there's 2 recent academy graduates there in the squad. But Miley, I mean, he's quite tall. He's an elegant sort of midfield player. He's not necessarily a destroyer and go around and smash people up like Joe Linton does a few times every match, which might be useful at Luton, but I don't know if he's going to be fit enough to play in that game. But I do take your point. Physically, he's playing in top level matches the way Newcastle go about things with such intensity. So he's incredibly fit, and he doesn't look lacking in that department, but obviously he'll develop and fill out a bit more over time. To be 17 and to have that ability to be so measured and to do what he's done it's absolutely incredible. And it's brilliant to see, because there hasn't been enough of that coming through the academy, unfortunately, or getting the opportunities at the early ages from the academy in the recent years. So yeah, great for Miley. He's been around the first team for a while, more than a year, I think. But yeah, this is his moment. This is his chance, and it's a real success story.
It certainly is, and hopefully more to come through as well. Just wondering, in that moment, Razor, when Miley puts it into the back of the net, again, just going back to what you do, with the commentating and what have you, what are you thinking in that moment? Because we've spoken before, and one thing that stood in my mind is when I asked you about when fans returned to the ground after COVID-19, and you said, well, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do, because in one way, you want the silence there to pick up the atmosphere. Now, obviously, you don't always want silence there, but in that moment, you said, it's going to be the first time you hear the chant. It's going to be the first time you hear the noise back. In that instance, when Lewis Miley scores, because I think everyone would assume, and most people would assume, you're going to be top of your voice excited. But I watched it back, and you were quite calm and measured with it. It wasn't as, I don't know, boisterous as I thought it might be. Yeah,
you try and judge it on the moment. I mean, firstly, the moment belongs to the player and the team, and I suppose the fans as well, not you. So you've got to try and find the right words and right tone to get them, to basically do the moment justice. And there's loads of different ways you can go about it. The one thing that you can't do, that you never do, is write anything in preparation for something happening, because you cannot predict what is going to happen on a football field at any given time. And just look at Newcastle's last few matches as an example. What happened in Paris, the Miley scoring his first goal after coming on and not starting. Even in the Chelsea match, they go 2-0 up, and then within a minute, it's 2-1, it's 3-1 because of a mistake. So you've got to be ready and just try and respond. Having the crowd there really helps, and we sit for our commentaries next to some supporters in the Millburn stand, just to the right of the halfway line, quite low down. So the crowd noise is really important to our commentary, and when it's on the radio, and I know some people watch it back through NUFC TV or the club social media with pictures, so you're seeing it, but for the radio it's about how it sounds, so the crowd really lifts it. And St James's Park's been so noisy and brilliant for the last couple of years, never more so than against Paris Saint-Germain this season, I would say, but that does make a real difference. But you can still be passionate and really give it some welly, but have a bit of control as well. I've not listened back to it yet, actually. We do listen back to all of our commentaries or parts of the games. Always trying to make it better, but hopefully we did it justice. And obviously, when it's Lewis Miley, just like when you're writing or you're talking about him, both of you, you know what it is. He's 17. We now know where he is on the Premier League's list of youngest goal scorers. He's Newcastle's youngest scorer. So there's all of that that's going to go in. And that's why you do your research and things beforehand, and then you just hope that the words come out in the right order when something happens. It doesn't always happen, I can assure you, but that's what you try to do.
On that goal, there's elements of the build-up that we need to talk about. I mean, firstly, Aaron, Tino Livramento dancing down the flank, coming inside, then giving the ball to Bruno. Another really solid performance by Livramento, and we've got a fullback now who can go forward with confidence. He's assured with the ball. He's not just someone who gets down the flank and puts it into the box. He's someone who can cut inside. He's someone who can go for goal. He's someone who can dance around defenders. And again, he's still someone that's got the best years ahead of him.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw a fan the other week. It was well before the Fulham game when Tino was really enjoying that good purple patch of form. And somebody compared him to a really young Gareth Bale. When Gareth Bale was just coming through and he was playing at left back rather than left midfield, and he was actually adding goals to his game. And I don't know if he's there yet, Livramento, but I think he's certainly, we've seen what he offers going forward as well as offering going back. I mean, when they were playing against Manchester United the other week, and Man United were trying to spring these counter-attacks, it was remarkable how often Livramento would be there to cut it out and shut it down. I thought he had another really, really good game on Saturday. I think he sort of went under the radar on Saturday with how good he was. Very, very versatile, as we've seen. He started obviously at right back, moved out to left back. The sky is the limit for him. We've got to remember he's only 21 as well. He could really become a really great player for this club. And I was speaking to Ben Dinnery, the injury expert, last week, and I was asking him about Livramento and obviously coming back from this ACL injury. And Ben was saying it's really interesting to see how good he's been this quickly after such a lengthy absence, because usually it takes players 1 to 2 years to get back up to full speed. If Livramento's still got another way to go in the next year, then I'd like to see it.
Left the ground also thinking what a nice gentleman he is, because there was a collision with a Fulham player and he crouched down and helped him up. You don't always get that. He just looks like a very nice gentleman. But yeah, on the pitch, I mean, he's just unbelievable. And to have someone with that confidence Razor going down the flank, but also someone who can defend really well as well. And he's got speed about him. You're going to have to be quick to get the better of him going towards Newcastle's goal. Have you been impressed with him?
Oh, he's an elite level fullback already. The fact he can play on both sides is a big plus. But he's so athletic, so good on the ball. He does everything so well. When I was with you, Andrew, at the end of last season at the Everything is Black and White live event that we did, that you invited me very kindly to speak at, I did mention Livramento as a player that I'd love Newcastle to sign. And I'm so pleased that they got him. I remember when he played for Southampton at St James's, and this was during the Steve Bruce era still. It was 2-2 draw, wasn't it? At the start of what became the takeover season. And that day, and he just signed from Chelsea, you could see, I think he was 18. He looked a level above quite a few players out there, and you knew he was going to develop into something special. I'm so happy that we're going to see that hopefully at Newcastle. They had to pay quite a bit to get him because Chelsea would due a portion of the transfer fee. But but he's absolutely worth it, and it justifies the outlay and the work they put into that transfer. It was interesting that I think Chelsea, if my memory serves me correctly, the home match was his first Premier League start in a Newcastle shirt. He'd come on in a few games. Obviously, he'd started in the Cup at Manchester United against Man City, where he was very good against Jack Grealish. And then he was brilliant in Dortmund. He was Newcastle's best player that night. And you could see that, this kid's a star. But now he's in the team. How on earth do you take him out of it? Unless he's injured or suspended. Dan Burn's going to have a battle on for that left-back position. But also Dan Burn, a bit like others, as we've talked about, can play in more than one position. And that's really important, but especially at the minute. So Livramento can give you both sides. Burn can go inside. Krafth can play at centre-back, as we saw at Old Trafford. I'm a big fan of Livramento and the options that he gives Newcastle. I think everyone's a big fan of Livramento, and I'm looking forward to seeing him tomorrow at Chelsea. But where it all started for him.
Yeah, versatility is key there as well. We've got Les saying Livramento is one of the best tacklers I can ever recall, on top of everything else. And Sean, agreeing with you, Razor, that he's so glad Newcastle signed Livramento, such a talent. So Razor kind of predicted he was going to end up in Newcastle. I've predicted he's going to be first choice next season. What's your Livramento prediction, Aaron?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll go bold. I'll go even further down the line. Future Newcastle captain. Future
Newcastle United captain, right? We'll come back in a few years to see if Aaron was right about that one. The other element of that,
England squad, maybe end of the season.
Well, I wonder if he's going to get in the England squad ahead of Anthony Gordon. Obviously, different positions, but before Anthony Gordon, which would be a little bit cruel on Gordon, wouldn't it?
Well, listen, Cole Palmer, who we'll probably see tomorrow for Chelsea, has done extremely well for them this season. But I'm pretty sure Anthony Gordon's numbers are still better than Palmer's, although he set one up and scored at the weekend for Chelsea. It does feel, this is probably not a new observation and not a new argument on this show, that it can often be the club that you play for more so than your form that can determine whether you get a call up for England. But in Gordon, in Livramento, and there are others beyond them, Newcastle have players who, really ought to be under consideration for England. So you never know. And Trippier's a regular. Wilson's been back in, but had to withdraw through injury. It's great that they've got so many that are candidates for England, but those two at their young ages could still definitely be around the international scene for a long time. I hope they both get recognition, because I think they deserve it, Livramento and definitely Gordon this season.
Certainly so. We've got Geordie Tune for Life saying Livramento for Prime Minister. He can't do a worse job than those currently in charge, so we'll wait and see about that one. The other element of the goal, Aaron, was Bruno dancing past a few defenders. Really nice footwork, and then picks out Miley. Miley does the rest. I thought that second half in particular from Bruno was probably his best performance in recent weeks.
Certainly one of his best performances of the season. I was speaking in my group chat on Saturday night. Someone said it's probably one of the best performances he's ever had in a Newcastle shirt. I think it's certainly up there. I thought, as I said at the very start of the show, it felt like one of those games where you needed, a player to just step up and carry the team on their back and drive them forward to win. And I think a lot of times we don't see that from Bruno. He's got the ability to do it, but there's some times where, maybe he just goes a little bit missing. We've already questioned, at the very start of the season, where we seen the best of him. Was he still fully fit? I think the last few weeks he's really, really stepped it up. I think Milan, I know me and you maybe disagreed on it in midweek, but I thought he was really, really good. That is the Bruno that we signed. That's what we wanted. We want to see more of it. I thought he was far and away man of the match. Really, really good to set up both goals, two very different assists. And now we just need to hope that that's the start and he can maybe kick on a little bit.
The most passes in the game from a Newcastle point of view. I think most touches as well. What was your take on Bruno Razor? Back to his best?
Yeah, I thought he was really good. I would agree with Aaron, the man of the match from the weekend. I think he's been good in recent weeks, actually. Thinking back to PSG in the first half, when Newcastle participated more in the game, in the sense that they had more of the ball. I thought he played well, and he's built for the big stage, and he wants to play in the Champions League. And I think his last few European performances have been good, as have the Premier League ones. Obviously, he missed the Bournemouth match, which they lost because when Bruno doesn't play, Newcastle don't win. The stats show that, don't they? Is it 7 matches since he made his debut that he hasn't featured in, and they haven't won any of them in the Premier League. So, look, we all know we don't need numbers to to understand why Bruno's so important. Your eyes don't lie, and he's fantastic, and could be key tomorrow night in getting through in the cup. He's one player, obviously, going back to those statistics though, how much they've not done well without him, that they really cannot afford to lose through injuries if this crisis is to deepen and continue. So they've got to protect him because he's playing every match, but he's so important that he has to, they just can't afford to lose him.
And I mean, there's other players as well who stood out on Saturday. Dan Burn looked like he'd never been away. Really assured performance from him. I thought Jamal Lascelles had another decent game, 9 out of 9 aerial duels. But I think the person we're going to speak about next, Razor, is Mr. Emil Krafth, back in the fold, unexpectedly perhaps because of the injuries on the day. But he was absolutely superb. And Eddie Howe did something he doesn't usually do. He singled him out for praise in a post-game press conference as well.
Yeah, well, he did a couple of things because he brought Krafth on and then moved Livramento and moved Burn inside. So he switched around 3 of the back 4 when he made that substitution. And with Sven Botman on the bench, probably you would have felt that because of Botman's importance that he might have been the player to come on. But after 3 months out and missing 17 games, Botman, they were just being careful with him, and we got to see him later. But I'm so pleased to see Emil Krafth back and doing well. 13 months out is such a long time. And Eddie Howe said today at his press conference that he hasn't lost any of his speed, which he feels is a big strength of his. And after a cruciate ligament injury, that's always a big concern. You know, what condition do players come back in? So Emil Krafth looks good. He was brilliant up and down the touchline, defended well. A fantastic performance. And Eddie Howe after the match did praise him, Andrew, you're right, and made reference to that spell when Kieran Trippier got injured when he broke his foot not long after signing, and Krafth had to play the majority of that final period of the season, and it was his best football for Newcastle. And it's clear that he's the latest addition to this lengthy list of players who've benefited so much from Eddie Howe and his coaching staff's management and help over the last 2 years. Pretty much everybody who's been there in that time has been touched by it in a positive way. And now you've seen the improvement in Krafth's game, and it's really good. He seems like such a nice person and a good character and with a fantastic attitude. So you can't help but be pleased for him.
Gary says ever since Howe was come in, Krafth hasn't put a foot wrong. Also offers us directness down the right. If I'm not mistaken, Aaron, he is out of contract though, isn't he, in the summer? So he'll be looking to earn himself a new deal. And I saw plenty of talk on social media after the game. Why not give Kieran Trippier a break over the next couple of weeks? Maybe bring him back in time for that Liverpool game. Obviously, that's a few weeks away. But it looked like Trippier was suffering with fatigue more than most before his suspension against Fulham. So is it time for Emil Krafth just to get a few games under his belt, or do you need to bring Trippier in, i.e. tomorrow against Chelsea?
Well, Eddie Howe was asked this morning about Trippier, who obviously missed last weekend through suspension. And he actually said, you know, they're going to make a late decision on Trippier and potentially rest him and give him a little bit of a break after such a hectic schedule. I think we've seen how well Livramento's played there. We've seen how well Krafth did on Saturday. I mean, he was absolutely fantastic. And also, it just added to the performance that he put in at Old Trafford, which was his first start back in the team after such a long absence. And he goes to Manchester United away and keeps a clean sheet. I think he's been spot on. He was asked a couple of weeks ago on international break, you know, do you see your future at Newcastle? Do you want to stay? And he made no bones about it. He would like to get a new contract here. If it was me making the decision, I think it's an absolute no-brainer. He's a fantastic squad player now.
I think I'd like to see him get a few more games under his belt before you offer him a new deal, because it is such a big injury. But if he continues to take the chances like he did on Saturday, there'd be no issue in extending his stay. It felt like a big goal for Miggy on Saturday. We know he's had a lot of stick in recent weeks for lacking that end product. Has he slipped back into the Miggy of old? And then obviously what happened against Milan on the line, where hits that with his right. It's in the back of the net, but he just wasn't capable of doing it. It felt like on Saturday he was trying too hard. Like he was really trying to produce something, whether it be a goal or an assist. In the end, a simple tap in, but you could tell by the way that he celebrated, holding his hands up in a sort of apology. I think he was impacted by the criticism, I think, of the last week ahead of Fulham.
Yeah, very possibly. He's so important to the way Newcastle play. It is frustrating at times when he won't use his right foot. And when I sit next to John Anderson during the commentaries, it is one of Ando's biggest issues with Almiron. He gets quite annoyed sometimes when he just won't use his right foot. There was one time on Saturday when he was on the left wing because they swapped him and Gordon for about 5 minutes. And he had the chance to cross with his left and he cut inside and laid it off. He thought it was on his favoured foot, he'd just whip it in. But actually cutting in from the right side, and famously against Fulham last season, the 1-2 with Bruno, they almost tried to do it again on Saturday, but it didn't come off, has brought Newcastle a lot of joy. He is very one-footed, but everything else that he does, whether it's off the ball or on the ball, is really important. The end product has been an issue, but that has improved significantly under Eddie Howe with the number of goals that he has scored for the club. I think he's just gone past, in Premier League terms, because we've talked about this a lot, with Callum Wilson being third on the list now. I think Almiron, I'm not quite sure where he is, but he's ahead of Laurent Robert now for Premier League goals for Newcastle, which is not an insignificant thing. Such a legend of a different era, but a great team. He wasn't going to miss on Saturday. I don't know if it had been brought back for a penalty had he not got there, possibly for the challenge on Wilson, who got barged over. But it did feel like he needed the goal. And I hope there'll be another one from him tomorrow at Chelsea, because you'd expect him to start because there's nobody else really to play in that wide position. But Eddie Howe thinks a lot of him and selects him pretty much every time he's fit. So I think he's going to be a big player for Newcastle again this season, Almiron. But yeah, I don't know how you feel about the whole right foot thing. The tap in against Milan's, it's tough. It'll have hurt him as much as it frustrated supporters. You do just wish sometimes he'd back himself a little bit more with his right foot. He's a Premier League player, an international player. Trust in his ability.
Well, there's two things that irritate me more than anything when it comes to professional footballers, and it is not beating the first man with a cross or a corner, and the inability to use both feet. I mean, when you've been paid this amount of money, you should be able to be using both feet and beating the first man.
And also, it's not as if we're talking about Miguel Almiron, the 19-year-old up-and-coming superstar who might be able to start using his right foot. He's 28, 29 years old. He should have, have learned to by now. It's a gripe that we have on this podcast quite a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, it really does frustrate me. I can see Sam Milner from Newcastle Fans TV in the green room. We'll get him on in a moment because it's going to be the end of trivia, because this is the last Monday show before Christmas, and the last Monday show of 2023 actually. But we're going to end up with some trivia that me now and I'm going to partake in. So we'll get into that in just a moment. I just want to ask you, Aaron, about the injury crisis continuing though. Fabian Schär and Joe Linton coming off, and you just have to laugh, because if you don't, you'll end up crying. Yeah,
I mean, when Fabian Schär went down, it was, that collective groan in the stadium. It was one of those where you knew he wasn't getting back up off the turf, given that he pulled up so quickly when running with the ball. Joe Linton just compounded the misery. There was actually a moment in the second half as well when Dan Burn went down and he was holding his back, and I thought, oh my God, this is...
I mean, second as well.
They are just dropping like flies, and I think... a lot of fans have pointed to the fact that, going out of Europe might not be the worst thing. Eddie Howe will never agree with that. I'm sure a lot of fans listening to this won't agree with that, but, they are still running on fumes. They could all do with a break. Thankfully, though, it doesn't look like Schär and Joe Linton are going to be too long out. It looks like a little hamstring problem for Joe Linton and a glute issue for Schär. Probably won't be risked tomorrow night, but touch wood, doesn't look too long.
With that in mind, then, who starts in that back line? Because we've seen Newcastle make the changes in the cups against Manchester United and Man City. he hasn't really got too much option to do that again. But who starts centre back for Newcastle?
Oh, for me, I would probably go. You know what? I would not be against it being Krafth and Dummett again, like it was at Old Trafford. There's also
Trippier at right back, Livramento left back.
I would maybe even go Livramento right back, Burn left back. I'd be open to how hinted today that it looks like they may give Trippier a rest, and I think I'd be happy with that.
Razor, who are you picking in that back line?
Yeah, tough on that, isn't it? It's probably the one area of the team where he's got options. Yeah, I mean there might be. I'd say Livramento will play. There might be a chance for Botman. Would he play Botman and Burn together? Probably not. So it would be Lascelles. I'll say Krafth, Lascelles, Botman, and Livramento from right to left. It's my prediction.
Two different lineups there. I suppose
we can't pick the same one because that doesn't really serve the debate, does it? So it's got to be different. Yeah.
How big of a moment was it for Dubravka on Saturday to keep a clean sheet, do you reckon? Because he's had a torrid time of it of late, coming in for Nick Pope, conceding boatload of goals, and a lot of criticism for him, which I thought was unfair to a certain extent because there's a lot of the goals he couldn't really do much about. But Saturday keeps a clean sheet. That'll be a massive confidence boost to him, won't it, Rizza?
Yeah, I don't think he had a lot to do, did he, during the game? But his handling was spot on, which I think it was against Milan as well. Obviously, he was beaten twice and did get some criticism that week from some supporters. But Martin Dubravka in the past for Newcastle has been one of their most important players, and he's a former player of the season at Newcastle. And look at how good he was when he signed a few years ago. So we know that he's capable of being a very good Premier League goalkeeper, and he's got the opportunity now for a run in the team, which will continue into the new year. You would imagine. You would think that he'd start tomorrow, wouldn't you? Rather than a change with Karius coming in. So yeah, I hope he's in a good frame of mind after the clean sheet. But he should play tomorrow, shouldn't he? You don't think he'd check?
I think he'll keep Dubravka in more certainly. I think the rest of the team, you probably see Bruno, Longstaff, and Miley across the middle, Gordon, and Miggy on the flanks, and Callum Wilson. I mean, Isaac might be back. This might not be back. Probably won't risk him ahead of Luton on the 23rd. I just want to have a quick word about Chelsea, because with Newcastle's form, Aaron, we know large part of it has been down to fatigue and injuries. But with Chelsea's form, a large part of it has been down to the fact that they just don't know what the best 11 is. They've got so many players, they're disjointed. The project is really in its infancy, but it's actually hampered by how many players they've got in. They're not a very good side, Chelsea. I don't think that's unfair to say. Whereas with Newcastle, they're a good side, and when they get everyone back, I mean, I'm buzzing about February, March time when they've got a full squad back, because I think you can see Newcastle actually accelerating up the table at that point. This game tomorrow, again, he's not going to have loads of options back, but he's still going to have enough about the team where they can play well. It might be away, but they can play well and beat Chelsea.
Absolutely. I think there's plenty of reasons to be positive. One, and it will be a huge confidence boost, is how well they did at Manchester United away, how well they did against Manchester City with, essentially a second string side out. Number two, Chelsea are very, very hit and miss, as we've seen. I think they're a team of individuals rather than a collective. I think they've got some very, very good players. But if you can keep Cole Palmer and Raheem Sterling quiet if they play, then I think you've got a really, really good chance of winning. The only real issue for me at the minute, if I have to maybe go on the other side and be a bit negative, is if this game was at St James's Park, I'd be very, very confident. But you look at Newcastle United's away form, barring Manchester United in recent weeks, and nearly winning in Paris. And you think, you look at the form table and think they're just not the same animal away from home. But
it's the cup, though, isn't it?
It's the cup, and look, nobody really gave them a chance at Old Trafford when we saw Dummett and Krafth starting at centre back, and a really weakened team, and yet they still went there and made light work of it. So I'm weirdly, I think I feel maybe a little bit more confident about Chelsea than I did against Fulham on Saturday, because going into that Fulham game after Milan, I thought, it's going to be a real effort. But I think in the cup, they've got just something about them. I think they'll win tomorrow.
I'm feeling quite confident as well. And against Sheffield United, Chelsea were not very good for the first 55 minutes or so. So that also gives me a little bit of confidence. Reza, just tell us what Eddie Howe said about the competition, about the Carabao Cup, and how much that he wants to progress into the next round and hopefully finally onto Wembley.
Yeah, he used the word desperate to get through, and talked about some of his favourite experiences of last season. This is when he was speaking this morning at his pre-match news conference, and he said that the semi-final, both legs against Southampton, stick in his mind because of the way the fans responded to the team winning eventually at Southampton, and then after confirming their place at Wembley, how meaningful that was. And although the match itself wasn't great, they were in a bad run of form, bad time to play Manchester United, who were doing okay at that time. Everything else he said was really brilliant, and they want more memories like that. He also said that this season they've had to raise their game in the League Cup because of the opponents they've had, but they've seen off both Manchester clubs, and now they've got to do it to Chelsea, who are not what they were. But as Aaron said, the record away from home this season hasn't been great, and Eddie Howe said that he feels that will sort itself out over the course of the season. He can't put his finger on one thing that's prevented Newcastle from picking up points away in the league, but he did make reference to that brilliant win at Old Trafford. So I don't know. I think I'd have been more comfortable with them not winning on Saturday than losing tomorrow, because you don't want to go out of two big competitions in a week. And I really want to see them get to Wembley again and do it this time, which by late February, as you've both talked about, the state of the squad will hopefully, although they'll probably pick up more injuries before then, the way things are going, they should be in a better position. And I think it would be a really brilliant thing if they could get back. The problem is Liverpool are still in the competition, and the way the draws have been this season, you can just see it, can't you? I'd rather play Liverpool in the final if they could get there, because if you lose, it might be more palatable, but also it would be the best place to finally beat them, because they've just got such a hold over Newcastle. So the Liverpool factor worries me if they can get through. They are absolutely capable of beating Chelsea and winning at Chelsea, even though the record at Stamford Bridge is rubbish. And I really feel like they're going to do it tomorrow, even with all the injury problems and the challenges that they're facing. So it's going to be a big night, but yeah, they can definitely do it. And look, wouldn't it be great if Middlesbrough beat Port Vale? Mm-hmm. They got Middlesbrough in a two-legged semi-final, because they've not played them since 2010. And you have Sunderland in one cup and then Middlesbrough in the other, and a chance for Newcastle to beat both of their, closest geographical teams in the space of a few days and weeks. That would be fantastic. It'd be big for football in the wider region, wouldn't it? They'd be wonderful occasions. So that would be what I'd like to see.
Certainly would be. I'm not sure about the region's police forces or whether they welcome that draw, but I'm sure everyone will be on the best behaviour. But a full house, because I think they're going to beat them as well. Let's get Sam Mulliner then from Fans TV into the studio. Sam, welcome to the podcast. I set you a little bit of a task yesterday, didn't I? And you thankfully took it on board. And that was to sort some trivia out for me now, because listeners of the podcast know that I present Aaron some trivia at the end of every show, and he usually does very badly. So given it's Christmas, given it's the last show of the year, I thought Sam could be the quiz master, and we'd go against each other this time around. You ready for it?
Yeah, always ready.
Sam, do you want to explain the rules? Because there is a little bit of context.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Chronicle Live Quizmas. And basically, I've got 10 questions. It's going to be, I was thinking about a penalty shootout format, but I think what we can do is, if we have a bit of a buzzer, instead of just one of you having Bing and the other one Bong, I think in honour of having Razor here, I think, Andy, your buzzer will be Matty Longstaff hit it with a big, with raucous verve. And Aaron, your buzzer will be the classic Ando quote of "just put it in the net."
Yes, I'm so glad that's the one I got.
Also, in honour of Razor being present, you both have a lifeline of Ask Razor, which you can only use the once. And he can answer your question for you, but we have to take his first answer. Do you both understand the rules?
Yep.
So let me finish the question, then come in with your unique buzzers. And there is a tie-break question if it's 5-5 at the end of this, which was devised by my 6-year-old son Charlie yesterday. Actually, very sensible. It's quite scary. Okay, are we ready for question 1?
Go for it.
Okay, it's an underarm, so you should both know this one. Who scored Newcastle's final goal of the Mike Ashley era?
Just put it in the net. Jeff
Yes, Aaron.
Hendrick.
Correctamundo. I thought you would have both been in there like a flash then.
Yeah.
He's looking worried in the
I've got to give
studio.
him a head start, haven't I?
Well, that's probably the easiest question of the lot. Okay. Question 2. Nobby Solano had 3 different squad numbers during his playing days at Newcastle United. Can you name all 3?
Just hit it. Oh my God.
Go on.
14, 24, and 32.
No, you've actually no that and two, I don't want to play this down, but that is an appalling answer.
Well, I can't hit them.
You've missed the probably the most obvious one.
Oh, go on, over to you.
That is the closest you've ever had of swearing on this podcast for many years. Razor, do you know the answer to this?
I think I do.
Hit me.
I think it's 4, 15, and 24.
Oh, different gravy. Different gravy.
Should have used your lifeline, Musgrove. But
I should have done.
You've still got it, though. Still got it.
I've never had it.
Okay, so it's still 1-0 to Aaron, but the moral victory so far is Razor's winning this. Okay, next question. Question 3. Which former Newcastle United loanee scored his only Newcastle goal in the League Cup versus Portsmouth?
Newcastle loanee.
We're talking, and that must have been a while back.
I think it's safe to say the quick fire element of this quiz has gone over.
Yeah. Just hit it. I'll use Razor's lifeline.
Ooh.
Okay. I'll try to help you out. I think the answer is Giuseppe Rossi.
That was my guess. That was going to be my guess.
Yeah, convenient.
On bloody exactly.
Is that
correct.
Right?
Happy to help you.
Thank you, Razor.
That is 1-1. Just to point out, Razor has 2 correct answers so far. Okay. Question 4, it's 1-1. Who was in goal for Newcastle for the infamous 2-1 derby defeat to Sunderland?
Just hit it. Steve Harper.
No.
What was the
And
finish?
you know what? I'm going to open this one up to Aaron because I did not finish the question. I'll restart it for you, Aaron. Who is in goal for Newcastle for the infamous 2-1 defeat to Sunderland at St James's Park, which ultimately ended Ruud Hullit's tenure at Newcastle?
I am going to go with Cernacek.
No.
What was she given, right?
No. Razor, do you know?
Tommy Wright.
Correct.
Bloody hell. Razor's never going to be allowed to answer any trivia because you embarrassed
Me and Razor are going for a pub quiz tonight. Right. Next question. It's still unbelievably 1-1. Who is Newcastle United women's top scorer so far this season?
Just put it in the net.
Yes, Aaron.
I'm going to go with Anna Soulsby.
No, that is incorrect. Should I offer it across? Why not?
I'll be honest, I have no idea. I apologize. I don't know that one.
Razor, any thoughts?
I'm not sure of the number of goals she scored, but I think it's still Bridget Galloway.
Yes, it is. She got a hat trick yesterday against Fylde, which took her tally to 16 so far. And unbelievable. She had a bit of a drop.
Was it 11-2 yesterday?
11-3.
That's doing really well.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
They're doing better than me now on this quiz. That's for certain.
Just worth pointing out for stats fans, Newcastle United women have not lost a league game in 2023. And they don't have another one this year. So they've gone unbeaten. Okay. Next question. How many have we got left? I mean, it's still 1-1 and there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions left. We're halfway. Who was the last player to miss a Premier League penalty for Newcastle?
Wilson's got a good record, though, hasn't he? This is like Callum Wilson.
Just put it in the net.
Yes, Aaron.
I think Razor will know this one. So
Yeah.
That's a shrewd move.
Okay. I've got an answer. I'm not 100%. I'm probably 75 with it, but I think, I think I'm going to go with Matt Ritchie at Southampton in the final match before the COVID pause. So I'm going to say Matt Ritchie.
How confident were you? 75%?
75, because I can't think of another miss since then in the Premier League.
Aaron, are you confident with Razor's answer?
Of course I am. It's Razor. He's the oracle.
It was a miss, but it might not be the last one. You see,
that's every right to be. Of course, it's correct. Of course.
Reputation on the line. Pleasure.
Any idea? Do you want to go for a further one before that? Before Matt Ritchie's?
He doesn't need his ego inflated anymore.
Was it Hosselu against Burnley?
Yeah, I think it was. I didn't look in. I just wanted to know.
All right. Okay. Fair enough.
Right.
I'm going to check that out after this quiz.
So, Aaron has a 2-1 lead. You've both utilised your Ask Razor lifelines. So, it's a straight shootout from here on in. Next question. How many goals did Louis Saha score for Newcastle? That's right. Louis Saha played for Newcastle.
Just hit it. He scored the one against Coventry. Did he score any more? I'm going to go. My first answer was 2, so I'm going to go 2.
You are absolutely 100% correct.
Yes.
The other Blackburn in the FA Cup.
My mum, I always remember my mum. Maybe it was the Blackburn goal. He heads it into the ground, doesn't he? For some reason, I always remember my mum saying, "Oh, shouldn't have done that. He'll injure himself doing that." She thought like it would hurt his neck. Shows what my mum knows about football. But both stuck with us that one. Come on, then. You know what? I apologise to our listeners and viewers because this is like when Sky think they've picked a really good Sunday Super League Sunday match, Super Sunday match, and then it just like dies off before 0-0. A little bit like that one yesterday between Manchester United and Liverpool.
Yeah. So obvious that was going to be 0-0 as well. But hey ho. 3 questions remain. It is 2-2. Next question. What nationality is former Newcastle United midfielder Gail Bigirimana?
Just hit it. Oh.
Okay, Andy.
I can give you the flag.
You're going.
Burundi?
Burundi is a country.
Well, whatever nationality would be if you're from Burundi.
I'll give it. I will take your answer. Burundian, yes.
Burundian? Yes. Yes.
3-2 lead. Only 2 questions remain.
He's nervous.
We'll go more current before the final question. Although, Aaron, you need to get this, otherwise Andy has won.
Yeah.
Who scored Newcastle's first goal in the 8-0 away win at Sheffield United this season?
Just put it in the net.
Yes, Aaron.
You can't buy yourself time.
Of course I cannot, just because it was Sean Longstaff.
It is. It is. But it's a tricky little question, that, because you think there was that many.
There was so many of them.
We had yesterday the BBC Newcastle Sport Team Christmas celebration every year. On a Sunday in December, we have a day out and we have a quiz which is done by Paul Dixon, who's our legendary non-league football expert. And one of his questions in the quiz was who scored the first goal at Sheffield United and who scored the 8th goal at Sheffield United. And not every team got it right. So it's tricky because there were so many scorers, as you pointed out.
It really did get out of hand. Final question. The score is 3-3. We do have a tie-break question if neither of you know the answer to this question. I won't hand this over, so it's proper do-or-die time. Final question. Who was Newcastle United's player of the season the year they were relegated from the Premier League for the first time? So under Alan Shearer.
Just hit it.
Come on then, Andy. This is it.
Sebastian Basson.
Charlie is going to be fuming at home. Yes, that is correct. Sebastian Basson. We do not need the tie break. Andy Musgrove won the Chronicle Live Quizmas 4-3.
Where on earth have you pulled that one from?
I can't believe you got that. Should we play the
tie break? Come reservations.
Razor, you can have a guess in this as well.
Thank you.
Again, this question was devised by my 6-year-old son Charlie. So if you're going to have a go at it, you're essentially bullying a child. So, how many Premier League clean sheets did Shay Given keep in his career? I'll take a guess off all of you, starting with the champ.
Aaron's just interviewed him as well, and he doesn't know, which makes me feel
I wrote this down for the podcast.
I don't think it's that. I don't think it's as many as people think. I think 236.
236. Aaron?
Hang on, what was the question again? How many clean sheets did he keep for Newcastle?
No.
How many appearances?
How many Premier League clean sheets did Shay Given keep in his career?
Oh, in his career.
I'll stick with me. Guess.
Yeah, that's probably not too far away. I'll go slightly lower. I'll go 201.
I can't tell if Razor's
Razor
cares because he knows the answer.
I don't know the answer. 117.
So, if we'd have gone to a tie-break, we would have had a new champion.
It's just irrelevant.
However, I mean, it's not the correct answer, but Matthew Raisbeck, with an answer of 117, only 4 away. The correct answer
See,
I think Ray's got the moral victory in all of that quiz.
Yeah, it's just there were how many Premier League appearances? I don't know, 400 probably for all the different clubs. How many? You don't keep a clean sheet every week, and
not with our fans.
Yeah, yeah. And where else was he? Villa, Man City. Yeah. So
he played in the Premier League, did he? Or if he did, it wasn't many.
No, and when he went to Middlesbrough, but were they in the Championship then? So, yeah, it was a guess. It was a guess.
A very good one.
An excellent quiz, Sam. Thank you very much for putting that together.
Thank you.
And thanks to Charlie as well for the tiebreak, and thanks to Sam on a wider note for all he's done this year for the podcast, stepping in, hosting, stepping in, being a special guest, being the survey man as well, and now quiz master. It is much appreciated, Sam, from myself and Aaron and everyone that works on the pod. And we'll see you in 2024. Reza, thank you for being a special guest today, and thank you as well for all the appearances throughout the year and the live events as well. And thank you to you guys listening and tuning in. The familiar faces like Roger, like Les, like Darren, everyone who's in the comments, everyone. But thank you very much for tuning in. You guys listening, thank you for all the nice words, the subscriptions and what have you. We love doing this, myself and Aaron. It's been a record year for us as well in terms of figures and downloads, and it couldn't be done obviously without you guys following us every week. And it's a privilege to talk Newcastle United with you guys. And have a happy Christmas, have a brilliant new year. And for myself and Aaron, we'll see you guys very soon. Well, in 2024, hopefully celebrating Newcastle, flying up the league and in the next round of the League Cup.